Hello, good people. Kat here. I want to take you inside of this writer's notebook so you can see exactly what is included prior to purchasing, so you can be sure this is a resource that is going to work well for you and your students. So let's just go ahead and get started. Now, this is a 100+ page printable resource. However, within this resource, I'm going to share a link to an editable student and teacher doc. And I'm going to go back and we'll look at that here in just a second. But first, I want to show you through the printable version because they are just a little bit different. Now, this writer's notebook includes 30 paragraph prompts focused on opinion writing and lots of scaffolding resources to support emerging writers. So we start here with a printable teacher rubric. And then we have a student handout that explains the difference between opinion, personal narrative, and expository. I do want to mention that this resource is offered within a larger year-long writer's notebook bundle. The larger bundle includes 90 total writing prompts, 30 opinion, 30 personal narrative, 30 expository writing, and all the writing resources that you'll see here. So if you're planning to do some extended writing throughout the year with your students, you might have a look at that larger bundle before you buy this one in isolation. You'll just save money. So here we have an oral peer review guide. If you like to have your students work collaboratively, this will be a great tool. It guides them through having constructive conversations, sharing positive feedback, and suggestions for improvement. There are some sentence starters here to guide them through those conversations and a list of very specific criteria to address so that their conversations are genuinely constructive. Again, if you like having them do the collaborative work, here is a written peer review rubric. And here's a self-editing checklist that the students will use independently prior to submitting the final drafts of their paragraphs. Here we have a handout with helpful transition words and phrases. There's room here to add more. I share two different paragraph structures. This first one is very simple, as you can see, and I have highlighted it according to the color coding structure that I use. Now, I realize other teachers may use a different color coding structure, so what I've done is I've provided duplicate resources of all of these handouts without the color so that you can have your students highlight according to your own color coding methods. They can just use a highlighter, crayon, or colored pencil or whatnot. So same resource without the color. I include a total of 4 exemplar paragraphs. Here is the first one. Here's the prompt. And I have highlighted it according to the colors that I use. Here's the same resource without the colors. Here is the second exemplar paragraph, again, using the colors that I use. And again, the duplicate resource without the colors that you can highlight as you choose. And I have a paragraph structure guide and a second one without the coloring. Okay, and here is the second paragraph structure. So if you have emerging writers who are using transitions, then this resource will be very helpful. Again, same resource without the color. Here's the third exemplar, emphasizing the use of the transition. And here's the fourth exemplar with the transition and the duplicate resource that you can color as you please. Structure guide number 2. And there we go. And from here forth, you will have the 30 opinion paragraph prompts. Each prompt has 3 pages that look like so. So you'll have the first page that will have the prompt and a space for students to brainstorm their ideas. They'll all have these cute little stick person graphics that will print out just great in black and white. The second page is for a rough draft. I've repeated the prompt. I've included reminders, including a reminder to indent that first line, and then a third page to write the final draft, and so on and so forth. So 3 pages for each prompt. a page to brainstorm, a page for the rough draft with the reminders, and a page for the final draft with solely the prompt here. Okay, and so on and so forth. Now, let me take you back and show you very quickly through the Google Doc version. I realize that in addition to potentially wanting to change the color coding structure, which you can easily do in Google Docs, you also may want to change some of the words around in the paragraph. So for example, where I talk about making a very specific point, you might want to use the word claim or so forth. You also just might not want to print the resources, or you may have students working remotely. Whatever the reason, the Google Doc is just a great alternative resource to have, and it's included with your purchase. So you'll click on the Google link. It will force you to make a copy, and then once you open it, you will be here and you'll have a completely editable version of this resource. I will tell you it's not quite as pretty. It's not going to have the stick figure graphics because those just aren't compatible with Google Docs, but essentially the material is the same. I've included hyperlinks throughout. I've included the outline here with all the headings, so it will make it easy for you to go straight to the different resources. I also will give you a link here to my website where you can download free resources to introduce and teach figurative language. I always include or encourage my students to include figurative language in their writing. So there's that. And I'm also going to include within the teacher doc a link to an editable student doc. That way you're not having to separate out your teacher notes, your teacher documents from your student documents. You can just click on this link and you'll be forced to make a copy, as will your students. If you want to edit it, you can. If you don't have any desire to edit it, you can just share it with them as is. And the student doc will have all of the resources, just minus the teacher notes. And again, it's not as pretty as the printable version, but the information is essentially the same. Again, you can easily go in here and change that color coding if you want to before sharing with your students. And the prompts here, let me just scroll down to the prompts real quick, will just look like this. So again, they're not going to have the separate page for brainstorming. You can just instruct your students to brainstorm in their notebooks, and they can just write their rough draft here. And the instruction here is for them to submit their final drafts in a separate document. And if you want to change that, you can. So that is what the student doc and the teacher doc look like, along with your printable resources. Now you can find this material in various places, various online platforms. Of course, I always prefer for people to buy directly from me on my website, anamkarakat.com. I will put a link to this website in the video description below. Obviously, when you buy directly from me, you support me as a writer. And when you shop with me, I also include a $10 coupon code to be used on my website with no minimum purchase required. So in addition to tons of free resources on my website, I have a lot of resources that are under $10 as well. So you're going to spend close to $10 for this resource here, but then I'm going to give $10 right back to you. So it's a win-win for both of us. And I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And I hope to see you at my website, anamkarakat.com. Again, I'll put a link to my website in the video description below.